This is a continued discussion from the previous episode of Nose to Tail, a podcast where we explore the world of aviation lifecycle solutions, insights, and more. Presented by Jet Midwest.
I've certainly recognized that the component shop networking is different than the aircraft trading networking, and it's different than the component trading networking. We've really started to branch out to do much more third-party work. Quarter over quarter, we're trying to increase that because it's very helpful to us. But it's part of why we're growing is because we are getting some of that work in from some teardown companies, but we really haven't pushed the marketing side with Jet Midwest Technic because we're kind of full with the work we have already. That's why that growth period has been so important with the in-house training. We do a lot of that ourselves because we want to make sure the standard of quality with those products never stops. The Aviation Institute of Maintenance here in Kansas City, we as well go there to recruit and try and pluck the finest of that group out and bring them in and really, again, teach them on the methodologies we use. They actually, interestingly enough, have day and night classes. And so when we hire folks, they still work on their A&P there. They'll come and work for us during the day and then go to school in the evenings while they're completing their A&P license. And that's worked out. Again, it takes a very special young person to say, I can do both of these things all week long. And usually when they are willing to do that you've probably got someone with the right kind of work ethic and someone you can really build with. So, but certainly.
I started tuition reimbursement program at Medcraft. So we would pay for A&P licenses or really anything that had to do with the business that you wanted to study. So as long as they got good grades, we would pay for their A&P. We would reimburse them. And then the test also costs like $500 or something like that. So we would reimburse them for that. And it worked out really well because a lot of seasoned mechanics come in and they just want to do it their way. When you're really trying to build a solid product, it becomes difficult. And for me especially, it would be funny. I would go downstairs and they would, try to argue with me or try to tell tales. I would be like, listen, I might not know what you're doing, but I know you're bullshitting.
Yes. Yes. That is a good point. The BS meter from someone. I too don't have a license. Everything that I've learned about maintenance is because my team has taught me. I'm really inquisitive because I love it. I love the practical nature of what repairing parts or repairing airplanes is, And the longer I'm around it, the better my BS meter is. When someone says, you can't do that. And I go, I think you're wrong. And you know that I don't know very much. So if I think you're BSing me, then let's pull someone over who really does know, and we'll go grab a manager and go, okay, this is what we said. Well, no, I didn't mean that. Yeah. There's a nature to a mechanic of confidence as well that is also quite telling. Again, when you're trained to the same standard all the time, those guys gain a lot of confidence. And if they have, for instance, the 777 inlet cowls for the GE90, they split in half. So you literally take it and you split it in half. So there's a procedure to take them apart. And I don't remember how many man hours it was. I'm sure the manager of the shop could tell you it takes this many man hours to get that done. But the first one took a little longer. The second one got a little faster. And now those guys are just a machine. They can almost do it with their eyes closed. They're so good at it. And it's pretty amazing, again, just from that same procedure, same process, and then they gain the confidence to do it. And I've got, these young folks in there just taking apart over $1 million piece with no problem.
There's also something to be said about building an environment of trust that you were talking about that earlier. This is a safety sensitive area, and some CMMs have ambiguity or things left to inspection. And you want a mechanic that's able to question or at least bring up, what they think is wrong. And if you don't give people that space to be able to say, hey, I think this is wrong, you're not going to put out a good product. They're just going to do what they think you want them to do.
That's a good point. Some of the repairs that we've been able to put together for ourselves, where we've either got, we have an AMOC on the 757 inlet cowl, and we've got a couple of DER repairs that we've developed for some specific products. And it was outside the box thinking, I think we can do this. Let's think about this differently. And we had some folks along that journey that said, no, you can't do it that way. You can't do it. And we went and found the way and went and got it approved. And both of the two big projects we did, it was an awful fun journey to kind of break down all of those barriers. I was on the outside. Like, I don't actually know any of this stuff from a technical standpoint, but it was fun to watch those guys just, nope, we can overcome it. We're going to do this, this, and this. And so it was really neat to watch them come up with solutions of stuff I'd never heard of. I don't know enough about dissimilar metals and how they react to each other. And again, I learned some great lessons from those guys along the way, so I can talk like I actually know something. It can make me look good, you know? But it is awesome. It's one of the best parts of having a shop is being able to get in and really solve those. We as an internal company, we try and find a way to yes all the time. It's one of our mantras. You say, hey, we're going to find a way to yes here. Well, we can't do that. Well, I don't know that that's the answer. We're going to find a way to yes. It may be uncomfortable. You can tell me why you're challenged with this, but we're going to find a way to get around that and circumvent whatever challenge that might be. And so finding a way to yes has been pretty successful for us.
That's great. That speaks of the culture that you have over there.
Yeah, they haven't revolted yet, so I must be doing something right. Being in Miami and having a whole lot of MRO services, well, there's a lot of airlines and folks that are operating there. In that environment, you talked about how people are working together to help support. Can you maybe enlighten those of us who aren't from Miami? How would a guy like me break into that marketplace to really get the most out of it? Or maybe is there something unique that's happening there other than there's just so much aviation in Miami?
There's just a lot of companies. For a long time, most of the people that I knew from Miami, I only saw at conferences and golf tournaments and stuff like that, because we all travel so much. But there's events down here as well, and a lot of people frequent even the same restaurants. We're all kind of in the same area, and the techs also all know each other, and they are all super gossipy.
Oh, I could imagine. Oh, yeah. You'll never believe what happened down the street. Test bench exploded. What? They probably also rely on each other for some technical help. Hey, we're working on this thing and I need some help figuring it out. Or do you guys have this tooling that I can borrow because I just need it for this one repair that we don't do very often? I assume that there's a lot of that going on.
Yes, there is a lot of that. Yeah.
I ask everybody this question. I didn't prep you for this one, but Carol, tell us, what is your favorite aircraft?
Well, I think I have to say it's a 757. I would probably get in trouble if I don't say that. It is what takes me back and forth to Iceland, where my husband is from. So
I love the 757 as well. I fell in love with the product itself. It's built really well from a component supply chain. It's got some very robust pieces to it. So to be able to support that for, a decade plus has been a lot of fun. And the clientele that we've been able to meet and deal with, there's all these great clients. There's a million of them out there. And the fact they got converted to freighters, gave them that extra 20 years of life and allows us to spend more time with those folks versus a passenger product line that, after 20 years maybe goes out of service with some of these major operators. So I too love the 757. It's the one I normally pick.
Business-wise, it has been also very good for me. I like working on it. It has a ton of clients, like you just mentioned. It's a fun aircraft. Flying-wise, I would have to say 777. It's just comfortable, nice. You get in there and you go. But my favorite plane is a 757.
I'll continue the debate with you because although a 737, right? So a 75 is a single aisle aircraft, 3 seats on each side. And the 737 really has been the workhorse for the Boeing fleet for passenger aircraft. But the 757 in coach is a roomier aircraft. And for a big guy like me, that extra inch or two of shoulder space is pretty important stuff. Maybe for people who aren't as big as I am, that's not as big of a concern, but certainly for me it is. So another reason why I love that 75. On the 777 side, I've been lucky enough to take a couple of flights from Chicago to Dubai on 777, and what great flights. Long, 15 hours is a long time to be inside of any airplane, but they were great flights and service was awesome, and Emirates flights, so you can't go wrong with all the service that they give you. So Carol, our shop has really been expanding. We've had 10% growth in our technicians just this year, and we've got more coming in the next 6 months. Obviously, you guys are a startup, but we've really struggled to identify the right kind of mechanics to come in. We certainly bring in a lot of folks that we feel like we can train internally. How are you guys perceiving the marketplace in Miami for you to be able to get those technicians? And obviously being a new company, you're going to have some growth. And how are you perceiving that marketplace?
Technicians are very scarce. We are lucky enough in Miami where it's a hot market because we do have so many shops. So there are a good number of mechanics here. The problem then being they become very pricey very quickly because of the shortage of technicians. The strategy that I've always used and will continue to use is bringing young people in from either George C. Baker, which is the local aircraft mechanic school, or people starting off either car mechanics or any other type of industry that is mechanically driven. So we have always done a lot of recruiting. I have done a lot of recruiting outside of the aviation industry to get people in that we can train our way. And then going back to the culture, part of being in Miami and having a shop is making sure you keep those techs happy. And that's not always with top dollar. That is the kind of company that you run and the way that you treat people. So that, for me, has been a successful strategy. So that's what I'll continue to work on.
Yeah, that's great. Sometimes I see leaders, especially young ones, like, oh, well, I want to buy my team pizza for doing a great job. And I'm like, yo, that's fine. And I'll support that. But there really are ways to nurture the culture that you have. And it's a lot of times some subtle things. And I know one of the strategies that we oftentimes employ is the ability to keep the cancerous people out of the organization. And by that, I mean, maybe you've got someone comes in that just doesn't manage conflict very well. And our business is very high-paced and it's very intense at times. And people who can't manage high levels of emotion and intensity, sometimes when it is there, it becomes a negative thing. And so you have to find a way to go and remove that person from that team. And I've had many conversations, with managers who've worked with their people, and I go, hey, let's just invite them to leave that team. Maybe there's something else they can do within the organization. My place is pretty big, so it's a little easier for me to move people around and offer them an opportunity doing something that helps them avoid some of those challenges. And we literally just ask them to leave the team. And it's amazing the positive impact on the culture. Their teammates are already doing all the work and having to put up with somebody that's maybe not meeting the expectations of their project. And they appreciate me removing that person in a good way and putting them somewhere else than them being, in a way, tortured with this person that's just not performing at a high enough level. It's not fair to them. And they would much rather have me be that kind of boss than the one that just buys them pizza every time everybody gets grumpy. Still plenty of pizza at Jet Midwest, don't get me wrong. But, we do really try and nurture that positive culture environment. And even in the people that we invite to leave a team, we're doing it in a respectful way to say, we're not firing you. We're just saying you clearly aren't meeting the expectations and it's not fair to these guys every time. They get it. They understand. All right, I understand that. And then they can search for something else within the company to go and sit down and maybe that's more attractive to them or fits maybe the way that their mechanisms manage some of that stress and challenges.
It's also not fair to the person that is not up to par to leave them in a situation where they won't be able to grow or meet your expectations. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think the best thing that we can do is take people's strengths and match them to a job that allows them to do well.
So this previous summer, we had some young men that came in and worked in our warehouse as some summer work, some high school age boys, and my son was one of them. And the boys came in and had some really great experiences. We talked earlier about growing up in an entrepreneurial family, and it was a great experience for him. And they're working in the warehouse. He came home one day and his face is just covered in dirt and soot and all of these things. And he looks over at me and he's just wiped out. And he looks over and goes, how do you guys do this every day? And I'm like, well, buddy, that's life. And as he got through later in the summer and he got to do some neat things, got to be on the aircraft helping with some ops checks on some airplanes. He and the guys got to do a little bit of exposure to what the teardown guys do. They had a really great experience. And my son's like, hey, I want to come back and do this again. Now, you've got family, obviously, in the business. Would you encourage your family to join you on your journey? Is that part of your future, or are they going to take a sane person's journey maybe into some other industry?
We have 3 sons. The older 2 just got out of their teenage years. So now I'm starting to tell them, hey, come work with me. Hey, come work with me. I do really want them to come because I think they would love it. And they also grew up at the shop with me. For now, they're telling me no, they have their own things that they want to follow, but at least one of them will wind up with me. I know.
It's good to leave legacy. I was very proud of my son for coming to some realizations in life over the summer as he battled his way through some projects that the reason we hired him for is because they're young and strong and have lots of energy. So we definitely tapped into that. Well, Carol, thank you so much for being here. This has been a great conversation and I really appreciate it.
I'm super grateful to you for this, and it's not my strength, but I'm happy to come on here and try.
And for all you Nose to Tail podcasters, we appreciate you listening. Be sure and follow and like all of our podcasts, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Nose to Tail. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Presented by Jet Midwest.